Welcome in, Mountaineer Nation. I'm Sam the Man, and this is another episode of the Mountaineer Effect. I got a special guest with me this evening, host of the Flavor of the Week, Marcus Dean. Say hello to the people, Marcus.
What up, what up?
Oh, thanks for coming in tonight. I appreciate it, man. We're going to talk a little coaching carousel. For those people tuning in, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that little subscription button. We like subscribers to watch our videos. Anyway, we're going to go down the coaching carousel and talk a little bit about our thoughts on some of the hires and some of the contracts and just kind of how all that's going. Marcus, what do you think? What's been the best hire so far?
Honestly, and I'm supporting them tonight, as you see me, the man of many ball caps. The best hire to date so far, in my personal opinion, is the Miami Hurricanes hit it out of the ballpark by going to Oregon and getting Mario Cristobal to come back home. A former University of Miami player, won a national championship with the Hurricanes. So he has the winning mentality they need. And finally, maybe the U might be coming back.
I think that's a really good hire. I was kind of shocked, other than him being an alumnus, coming back home, pulling him away from Oregon was a pretty big ordeal.
Yeah.
What kind of contract did he get? Do you know right off?
As of right now, according to Yahoo is reporting it was a 10-year, $85 million total. 88. They're looking at about $8 million a year for him, plus incentives for going to bowl games, and it's backloaded with incentives. So for that, I mean, that's a pretty hefty contract. And it looks like Miami is definitely committing some resources finally to their football program, where they've kind of dipped in years past, but they've always had good players. They just never had the resources to back them in this last decade or so.
Well, and I think, for Miami, it's really important. We talked a little earlier about this too. They're on their way to getting an on-campus stadium built,
yep,
which is something that since they tore down the Orange Bowl, I mean, they haven't been the same. No. So how do you think this hire plays into that? Do you think that it's going to be – do you think it helped lure him away from Oregon? I mean, what do you think that did for him?
I think it was a major play by the boosters to entice him to come back home to Miami, because, a lot of people, if you read some of the stuff that the fan base says, it's a split. Some fans enjoy going to Hard Rock Stadium, which is a 40-minute drive from campus. Some enjoy it, some hate it. But for me, I personally, being a fan of the ACC, I hate it because to me, it takes away that experience, that on-campus experience that you want to have. And the John Ruiz of the Ruiz family, who's a multi-billionaire businessman, who's a major billion-dollar donor to the Miami football program, has come out and said the Ruiz family will donate $300 to $400 million to build the stadium. And they're looking at building a stadium in Coral Gables. Right, they're talking about Tropicana Park in Coral Gables, where their high school football stadium is, and they have a massive high school football stadium down there that seats roughly 40,000. They're talking about converting that until putting an additional 20,000 seats there and turning that into Miami's football stadium.
Well, I mean, I think that's smart. I think for the U to get back on the come up, this is the recipe they needed for it to actually happen, because people have been saying for years the U's back, but they haven't been. But I think this is the thing that'll get them to get them back on the mat, so to speak. I mean,
they have haven't been bad by no means. They just haven't been in that elite that we're used to seeing Miami in. I mean, they've been above average team for the last decade. I mean, they had certainly been to the conference championship. They didn't win it, but they've had good years where they've won nine ball games, but they haven't hit that double digit win since 2003 was their last double digit win, double digit winning season. So they need this something from either Cristobal as a coach. I mean, there's already talks of multiple players that he's went to Oregon that was from Florida that's committed to Oregon that's coming to Miami with him, and several 5-stars are looking at leaving Oregon to come with him.
I mean, it's amazing, you know, college football, the landscape surely changing, and we're not sure I think once we get off this carousel, things might normalize a little bit more. Because you're not going to see this amount of moves every single year.
No, not every single year. No.
Well, let's talk about another big one. You know, there was two what I would call insulting coaching changes that's happened so far this year. One, Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley taking off to USC. I think everybody agrees he handled it probably the wrong way and left a pretty bad taste in OU's mouth. But they hit a home run with Brent Venables. I think we can agree on that. Absolutely. I know my Oklahoma boys certainly believe. But the other one is Brian Kelly.
Oh.
Just completely miffing what it means to leave one job and go to another. You know, I've never had a microphone that gave me a Southern accent, so I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he handled that the worst way possible. He's almost as bad as Rich Rod. Almost. You know, as bad as Rich Rod. You know, the only thing I can give him is at least his season wasn't suspect, or you know, the way it happened, the way the last game happened, like none of that was suspect. Right.
But Notre Dame, you know, we were thinking Luke Fickell. They go completely off the reservation, really, and they hire Marcus Freeman. He was the defensive coordinator there at Notre Dame. You know, little known guy for us casual Notre Dame watchers. What do you know about Marcus Freeman? Do you think this is going to be a short-term fix, or do you think this guy could actually be a long-term hire?
Honestly, since he's able to keep everything in place with the recruiting class for 2022, 2023, I think they're going to give him some leeway. I really do, because watching, you know, just preparing for this broadcast tonight, watching the players embrace him as their next head coach it says a lot to me. And also, you know, the media, not necessarily the national media, but the local media there that covers Notre Dame. I've been following a lot of those guys on Twitter they're saying this is a complete home run hire. He's keeping the majority of the staff together. Tommy Reese is still going to be there running the offense as offense coordinator, associate head coach. He's still going to be there with them, only at 29 years old himself as an offensive coordinator. My God, where do we go wrong?
Wow. That's young. Well, I mean, you look at, you know, and we'll talk about this in a minute too, but I mean, it seems like some of these hires are getting younger and younger, and the numbers, the amount of money they're paying is just growing exponentially.
Right.
So we'll talk about that in a minute though. But, you know, I agree with you, like watching the players and the way they react to him, like you want to get behind this guy and root for him, you know, but at the same time, that's a hard place to coach. It's a hard place to recruit, you know, to keep up to the standards that they have. Not being conference affiliated is odd, you know. I just don't know that they've set him up for success. That's the kind of the way I look at it.
See, I don't know. I think this one's too early to tell. I mean, if he goes in there and proves himself next year, and they're in playoff contention again next year. Let's just say hypothetically they run the table and they maybe drop one game. Maybe it's when they play Clemson next year. Maybe they drop the game to Clemson, and they're sitting there pretty at the end of the year, 11-1, and under Marcus Freeman's, you know, first year as a, you know, full head coach, and with the 2023 class coming in as another top 5 class, do they sign him to a long-term deal? Because Notre Dame's a private university. They're not going to release the details of any contracts or anything like that. It's never going to be leaked. That's just the way they are. And you don't know how long, you know, they might say he signed an extension or has an extension, but you don't never know for how long or what's the amount of money, because that's Notre Dame's a private university and they won't release that information.
Well, we'll move on from there. You know, I agree with you. We'll just have to see how that one plays out. I think the bowl game will give us a good glimpse of what they're going to have in the new head coach.
Absolutely.
One of the more interesting hires for me, actually the Virginia Tech Hokies finally part ways with Justin Fuente. We agree that's a great move. It's about time. 2 years too late. but they go and hire Brent Pry. Now, I'm not familiar with him. Do you think that was a good hire? Do you think
on paper it looks good? It's just going to take time for me to wrap my head around it and see. Yeah, he played at Virginia Tech as in the early 90s. He played with J.C. Price, which is the associate head coach and interim head coach right now. He played under Coach Beamer. He played under Coach Foster, so he knows Virginia. He coached football at Lexington High School, just right up the road from me. He coached he was a graduate assistant under Beamer. He went off to the coaching carousel. But to me, I think this is what Virginia Tech needed. Granted, they could have went out and after seeing the amount of money that they're paying him, they could have went out and got who they wanted. But to me, I think internally, I think this is a home run under one condition: if he can recruit the state of Virginia, and he starts rolling in those players from the 757, from the Hampton Roads area, from Northern Virginia, and keeps teams poaching. Keeps teams out like Penn State. Keeps teams out like North Carolina, because North Carolina in this recruiting cycle has went and stole 6 of the top 10 players in the state of Virginia this year. And the other one going to Alabama, he was the number 2 player in the state this year, going to Alabama. So Bama's come up and poached a top player out of Virginia. Then the other one is going to Penn State. So keeping, teams like that out of Virginia. And if he does that, to me, this would be a success for him, but it's also going to have to transmit wins on the field until he can get his players in there. And I think the fan base has to be patient with him because you and I both know fan bases don't like to be patient. They want to win now. Yep. But unless you get a Dabo Swinney, or unless you go out and get a Nick Saban, or you go out and get a big name coach like a Luke Fickell, you're not going to win right away. You might win next year. He might win 7-8 games, which would be great. That would be a good stepping stone for him, but it's going to take time. And, long term, I'm still thinking about it. Long term, it looks good long term because of the history, but in short term, in reality, right now, it's a home run. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it's a home run hire because they went out, they were smart about it in a way. I mean, would I like to see him try to get Luke Fickell? Absolutely. Or Hugh Freeze? Absolutely. They want to, have that big name, but I don't know. It's just, I could go either way. To me, it's up in the air.
Well, when something fits, it fits. Him coming from Virginia Tech, understanding the culture, how to how to recruit down in Virginia and things like that. Like he checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Now I'm with you. It's up in the air. It's a 50-50 hire. It looks really good.
Yeah.
But Virginia Tech has a history of jumping the gun on their hires. Mm-hmm. And, things may check the box, but in actuality, it's not where it needs to be. And I feel like they really overpaid. I will say that, to get this guy in there.
Yeah.
I think the amount of money they paid, there are so many other names that they could have gone after. Mm-hmm. We'll just have to see how that one works out.
And $4 million a year, you could have went out and got a Luke Fickell, or you could have went out and got a Hugh Freeze for $4 million a year. I mean, instead you're paying $4 million a year to a non-proven head coach. Someone hasn't been a head coach yet, who's been a defensive coordinator.
Well, and really you have to consider that that's the direction college football is going in. Is you can't afford a Saban, and you can't afford a Dabo, and Lincoln Riley's are too far and few in between. So you've got to, I think the future of college football is going to be in projecting new talent and trying to land that next new talent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of, if you look at some of the hires, that's the direction it's going. I think that's the direction Virginia Tech went. Now, one that we'll hit on for a second, it again is LSU. Of course, we talked about Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame, but we got Ed Orgeron out, Brian Kelly in. Do you think Brian Kelly is going to have the same success at LSU and the SEC that he did as independent at Notre Dame?
No, unless he can recruit his tail off and get those top-level recruits to come to LSU, Playing against Alabama every year, playing against Texas A&M every year, playing against Ole Miss every year in that conference. I mean, that entire SEC conference is loaded. I mean, there's outside of Vanderbilt, everybody can beat anybody on any given day.
Yeah, I feel like LSU really overpaid there too. I mean, yeah. I don't feel that Brian Kelly's worth that kind of money.
No.
He's been wildly mediocre at Notre Dame, and what I mean there is he's been successful, but even when they've gotten into the college playoff, they've just gotten destroyed. Like,
yeah.
He does. I don't know that he has the ability to win the big game, and when you're in the SEC, every game's a big game.
Right.
So I look for that to be kind of an interesting development.
Yeah.
To see how that goes. I mean, I don't know. I got a feeling that it's just not going to work out too well for him.
I don't know. It's just that it's going to be a hard place to win, and if all of a sudden you gain a Southern accent from a microphone.
That's wild. That's wild.
Have you ever heard of a microphone giving you a Southern accent?
No, I have not. Well, now we're going to move on because, we could talk about the coaching carousel. I mean, there's so many.
Right.
But now I want to talk about current vacancies that need to hit a home run.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start with the Wahoos because I feel like, Bronco Mendenhall stepping down was kind of a surprise. Like,
it was. Yeah.
A little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, it sent shockwaves throughout the entire Commonwealth of Virginia.
How do you replace him as a coach? Somebody that I look at as being very successful and bringing your team up to a next level. How do you replace him, and who do you think they'll look at?
Well, honestly, I mean, there's been several names floated around out there, but the name that keeps recurring is Anthony Poindexter, who was a former player at UVA, who is ironically the other co-defensive coordinator at Penn State right now. So this Penn State lose both of their defensive coordinators respectively to Virginia schools. I mean, we'll see. But to me, it was a shock to see Bronco Mendenhall step down because when he first got to Charlottesville, his first year, they go 2-10, get destroyed by Virginia Tech in the battle for the Cup, get destroyed. Then every year after that, they bump up, they get bowl eligible the next year. Then the next year they win 8 games. Then here comes Bryce Perkins. He finds Bryce Perkins in the transfer portal, which was their version of Michael Vick. And he turns Virginia into relevancy by taking them to the Orange Bowl, and they almost beat Florida in the Orange Bowl in 2019, and they go to the ACC championship. Then COVID hits. Then, of course, you have another quarterback, Brandon Armstrong, which is a very talented quarterback, very much like Bryce Perkins. They go 5-5, during COVID, which was remarkable. Then this year, the expectations are a little bit higher for this year. But they, had some close games they lost. They should have beat Virginia Tech, in my personal opinion. They should have beat Tech in the Commonwealth Cup because that game was just, you just don't throw the football to an offensive lineman, a backwards pass to an offensive lineman. You don't do that. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. But anywho, they've made some shockwaves. I mean, they've done pretty well in recruiting, but Virginia and Virginia Tech's problem was neither school recruited the state of Virginia very well. It was just all these outside schools coming in and poaching the top talent, and Justin Fuente nor Bronco Mendenhall never really got that.
Well, and I hope he rests, relaxes, and gets back into it a few years from now. I mean, I feel like he's a really good coach, and I hate to see him step down. But I think there's well, I'm sure there's more to it than that. Probably just not being disclosed, and
which is not nothing that UVA publicly would come out and say anyway.
Right, but that's a shocker. That one really shocked me when I heard that. I was really surprised. Another big open job is Oregon. We talked about Mario Cristobal going to Miami, but Oregon, that's a big job too. That's a big name. The Ducks of Nike. You're talking big deal. Some big deals there.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think they target? Who would fit their air raid mentality?
Right. Honestly, if they want to get back to their old, pre-national championship years that they had there, a good run they had. If I was them, I wouldn't mind. I'd pick up the phone, see what Chip Kelly's up to.
Well,
he put them on the map. He did a really bang-up job before he went to the NFL. I mean, I don't know if they'll go after a name, though, but who's out there that's a marketable name that's actually left?
Well, I read an article today that was throwing Dana Holgerson's name out there.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, I'm not, how I feel about Uncle Dana, but, like when you get into play style,
that would match him.
That would actually match up very well. I don't see it happening, but you never know. I thought it was funny when I was looking at it, and that was one of the names that was on that list, and I was like, really? And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, I mean, it does make sense. Well, Marcus, thanks for coming on tonight, buddy. It's been a good conversation. I'm Sam the Man. This is the Mountaineer Effect. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. We need subscribers. Be on the lookout, guys. We're going to start doing some giveaways. We hit that 600 subscriber mark, so it's time to get some loot in you guys' hands. So be on the lookout for that. But on behalf of us here at the Mountaineer Effect, we appreciate you tuning in. Let's go, Mountaineers.